I'd like to welcome everyone to Bluegrass Week 6. We have a lot of stuff planned for the next hour and 15 minutes. I'm going to talk a little bit about the future of Bluegrass, about which I guarantee you I know nothing, since it hasn't happened yet. I've been talking about history up to this point, so I'm going to sort of peer into my crystal ball and talk about the future for a few minutes. I've got a couple clips I think that'll go along with that. And then Keith and Gary are going to talk a little bit about bluegrass vocal harmony. And then we'll do a little concert that kind of puts it all together. It'll be more in the nature of a jam session because this is the first time that this group has ever performed together. So it'll be a little bit like what you might hear at a Bluegrass Festival when you went out into the parking lot of the field and saw a bunch of people who didn't know each other or perhaps hadn't played together in a long time or perhaps hadn't played together ever in a particular group, picking away. So we'll close out with that. And I want to insert a personal note here. Since I mentioned this to Lynn, and I should tell the class about this. I wanted to talk about Bill Monroe a little bit more. And the times that the 3 times that I actually got to meet him in person at shows. The first time was in 1983 in the summer at a club in Washington, D.C. area called the Birchmere. Birchmere used to have these little table cards that they would put on all the tables asking us to please shut up while the performers were on the stage. So I took one of those backstage after the show and had Bill autograph it. And I just thought that Bill's been gone now for a generation or so, and I thought, you know, the father of bluegrass, this has now sort of become a relic. So I thought I would just pass that around. You can take a look at that, and you can say that you've seen a Bill Monroe autograph in person. The other 2 times I met Bill were at mandolin workshops at bluegrass festivals, actually not too far from here in Delaware County, the Peaceful Valley Bluegrass Festival, which unfortunately no longer goes on. Bill did mandolin workshops in conjunction with his personal appearances there, and these were, I think, in 1989 and 1991. And at the 91 workshop, when he was finished, he walked around and he shook everybody's hand. And when he came to me, he shook my hand. I had my mandolin around my neck, and he said, "Take good care of that mandolin now." And I said, "Yes, sir." Because Mr. Monroe was somebody who you wanted to say yes, sir, to, rather than no, sir. And people said that what Bill said to you, you remembered. And certainly, I remembered it. It was my probably my most detailed encounter with the father of bluegrass. But it was a thrill to get to meet and even talk to that limited extent the guy who had gotten this music off the ground. So I think the last class I got us up to the 80s. Since the 80s, bluegrass genre has expanded to encompass a wide variety of music played on bluegrass instruments, from what you might call angsty alternative to contemporary country. Performers include not just people who grew up in the country and grew up listening to bluegrass music from childhood in the South, but conservatory graduates from schools like the Berklee School of Music in Boston. It's probably likely now that bluegrass has never been more widespread, more popular. It's available on satellite radio. It's on the internet. So it's available worldwide. The International Bluegrass Music Association has been around for the past 30 years or so promoting bluegrass, and they have a big fan fest and trade show every year. So at some point people begin to say, well, what is bluegrass now? I mean, that's stuff that these kids are doing. That doesn't sound like bluegrass. So there have always been people who've been sort of afraid that the music is kind of losing its soul because it doesn't sound, a lot of it doesn't sound like, you know, what the pioneers were doing, what Monroe and Flatt and Scruggs and the Stanley Brothers and Jimmy Martin were doing. But I think that people don't have to worry too much about the future of bluegrass. I think it's in pretty good shape. And I have 2 clips that I wanted to share with you. One is a contemporary band, maybe 3. This is a band that played at Gray Fox last summer, the Gray Fox Bluegrass Festival, consisting of some Berklee College students who are just terrific musicians. These are undergraduates, and it's really impressive. I thought this is a kind of a swing tune that they did a little bit, and Fred was the videographer on this. So I know that doesn't sound a lot like Bill Monroe, but I will point out that shortly after that song, the woman who was playing the fiddle, the young lady who was playing the fiddle, stepped up and sang Blue Kentucky Girl, which is a Loretta Lynn song. So the students are definitely listening to the music of the past as well as the music of the future. So here's a group that's very popular now on the Bluegrass Festival circuit. Again, young people who have taken the bluegrass sound in a different direction.
Farewell to the ones I felt so dear. I set sail aboard a ship underneath the harvest moon, see what the world had left for me. So I wandered the water.
So thematically, there's a lot in common there with the first generation music, even if the sound is different. There are contemporary bands that are well rooted in the past, but also have their faces turned towards the future and are writing just beautiful original songs that have that same spirit, I think, that the music had when it was new. These are the Gibson brothers from upstate New York, IBMA Entertainers of the Year several years in a row. Just wonderful musicians, great people, and great songwriters and singers.
Something calls out to me from the wood and wire, as I chase a dream that heartache cannot tire. You're always there to keep me right in time, friend of mine. You travel with me across the world and you travel back in the brightest light until the room is black. If I need something, it's you.
Fred was a videographer on that one. That was also from Gray Fox. And just to show you that there are, youngish bands that are definitely interested in keeping the old sound alive.
When you left me, you said you returned, dear. You said that you'd be back someday. Oh, please let me hear from you, darling. I just can't go home this way. I know you never did love me, but I thought that you would hear someday. Oh, please let me hear from you, darling. I just can't go home this way.
Band called the Poe Ramblin' Boys. I think Bill Monroe probably would have given that the thumbs up. So I think the future, whatever it is, whatever direction it takes with this music, is in good hands. And I think there's lots more great music out there yet to be played, and I'm very optimistic about what's coming down the road. And now, I'd like to turn it over to Keith and Gary, who are going to talk a little bit about the one instrument that doesn't have any strings on it, the human voice.
Does have chords, though.
Ah.
I have to ask quickly, all our performers, are you okay with a photograph of you that could appear in local newspapers?
Better than the post office.
Or a milk carton? I'll take that as,
You could just get the ones from the post office.
I'll take both of those comments as, yes, we're okay. And audience members also, I hope.
It's a tough crowd up here. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. He needs two, one straight on and then.
I guess. All right, well, welcome back, everybody, and good to be back. Last time I was here was guitar playing, so now we're going to do vocal stylings, and we can jump right to the next screen there. So I want to talk a little bit about Bill Monroe as well, because a lot of people, again, father of bluegrass. If you read a lot of books and so forth and history of bluegrass, they're going to say he was the first bluegrass singer. Why? Because he's the father of bluegrass. So I just want to talk a little bit about the influences he had growing up before he went out and started a bluegrass band. So as I was reading and researching him, as he was a young kid, and I had never actually heard of this before. So they used to have singing schools. And so there were different groups, minstrels, etc., who traveled from town to town, and folks would sign their kids up to go and go to these little traveling musician schools that would go on by. So, and that's where he sort of learned the fa sol la mi shaping notes, as they call them. The other influence that he had was unaccompanied ballads. So obviously, a lot in that area. We are a melting pot, obviously, including back in that time. So he heard a lot of music of unaccompanied ballads from the British Isles, the Elizabethan era, being in the South, obviously the African American influence as well, and then of course pre-radio television and just the beginning of radio and so forth. You know, we had parents, other adults, everyone around was singing ballads, hymns to either quiet kids down or to amuse, obviously to teach young children through verse and song, and then obviously just entertainment, passing the time away as they're working. And then the third piece that he had was kind of the music of the day. So vaudeville was big during that time. He had a lot of musical influences from those kind of shows and acts that were coming through and that he saw. So, all right. So these are generalizations that a lot of people have referred to in talking about bluegrass vocalists. In general, bluegrass vocalists tend to sing in the higher ranges of their voice rather than the lower ranges. One might say that there can be an intensity or an edge to a song in vocally singing. And obviously there's a rare use of vibrato. It's pretty much a straight-on type of vocal performance. So, and if we can go on to the next, please. So when we look at singing, types of singing, it can really be broken up into two main categories. There's what we might call the production and the inflection. All right, so under production, we really have what we might call belting and crooning. All right, so obviously crooning was pretty popular back then. You had the Bing Crosbys and so forth of the world during that time, and some of those influences came into bluegrass. And one reason they came into bluegrass is pre-microphones and sound systems, they had to sing extremely loudly to be heard over the instruments. Makes sense? And then once they had that kind of technology, well, then the vocal performances could change a little bit. So you could have a song, there's one called Some Old Day. So Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs did it. Lester Flatt might be considered a bit of a crooner. So he might go, I've been working out in the rain, tied to a dirty old ball and chain. Oh, dear mother, I'll come home some old day. A little bit of crooning. So we also said that you can take a song, and a lot of bluegrass singers tend to sing in the higher range. So I'm going to take that same song, and I'm going to sing it a little more in a belting style. I've been working out in the rain, tied to a dirty old ball and chain. What a mother, I'll come home some old day. Very, very different style there. And both were recorded and performed in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and still today, using both styles. So the other aspect of this is a little bit of inflection. So some of it obviously has to do with where people were settled at the time, and bluegrass music was picking itself up. So if we look at the inflection, obviously we had some of the rural sounds. So obviously, for the most part, we're looking at the southern area, which is where a lot of bluegrass obviously took off in the 40s and the 50s. And so you can look on and on, I Follow My Darling, but when you listen to the song recorded from the 40s and 50s from a Southerner singing, it sounds a little more like on and on, I follow my darling, because they have this, they basically sang the way they talked, the Southerners. And then, especially in the late 50s, 60s, when the folk boom started, you had a lot more groups from northern areas who began playing. DC in the 60s was a huge hotbed for bluegrass artists who might be considered more of a urban style, where they didn't necessarily have the southern draw and so forth when they were singing. Yet we're singing the same songs, but it sounded a little different just because of the way they talked, the way they sang. So, all right, on to the next. So we got different singing parts, and this gets a little technical. So today you're going to be hearing a lot of duets when we play, a lot of duet singing. So in this particular case, most of the time duets are there's a lead singer, there's a tenor singer, usually.
Unless the tenor singer is singing too high as a lead.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Then you have to have a countertenor.
Counter terror. I like that. And then we get into trio singing, quartet singing. So trio singing, typically in bluegrass, we're looking at 3 different styles of trio singing. One is similar to the duet, where all we're doing is we're adding a baritone part in there. So you got the lead singer, the tenor above, and you got the baritone below. Another style in the trio singing is what we would call the high baritone trio, which means the lead singer is singing a lower part, and it's what they call stacking. So then you got a person singing a tenor above them, much like a duet, but then you have someone singing a high baritone. So you're stacking the harmonies on top of a lower lead voice. And the last trio is where the lead is actually kind of what Gary said. The lead is singing the highest part, and they're doing harmony below that person. So the lead is singing the melody way up high. Come on in. Great to see you.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. Did anybody find a library card and a Price Chopper card sitting over in that area?
No.
Nope.
No.
Yay, weekend. Thank you.
I was going to mess her up and say, no, but I found this guitar laying over there. So a high lead trio. So the lead is singing the very highest part, and then you've got a baritone and a low tenor. So people stacked under the high lead singing. And the last is a quartet, where again, you're going to have the lead singer, much like you would in a duet, the tenor, the baritone. Here we're just adding a bass singer. And another kind of quartet is, again, similar to the high lead trio, where the lead is singing the highest, and you have people stacked underneath that high lead. Yes, sir?
So is the music written for the group that's likely to sing it or going to sing it? Or is the group put together based on the music that has already been written in one of these patterns?
So
Or,
I would say it depends.
And not much of it is actually written.
Good point.
It's usually just sung, and then people sing around it, and find their parts.
Okay.
Yep. So again, I'll go back to that song that I just sang a moment ago. So you had sort of the crooning and the bellowing kind of style.
Belting.
Belting. Bellowing. One band sang it one way because of the kind of singers they had in the group and their vocal range, where another group wanted to make it their own, but also had a very high lead singer. So they completely changed the harmonies around, where in that first song, if you were to listen to the recording, they did more of a traditional standard trio, tenor, lead, baritone. Where the second time around, when I sang it much higher, belting, they did it in the melody was the high lead and the two people underneath them. So you can take a song and you're working with what you have. So, you know, in one band that I play in, I do more of a crooning style because I'm doing most of the lead singing. In another band, I'm not the lead singer. I do most of the tenor singing, but I sing a couple of songs myself in the band. And because that lead singer in that group has more of a country, smoother, warm kind of voice, and I'm a stark contrast to that. You know, I'm the high tenor and so forth. He does more of the crooning, and I do more of the belting to mix up the sounds of the songs to make it more interesting. So again, you're taking all these different characteristics that each individual member has in the group to formulate together to make your own sound.
Thank you.
Okay? All right, and on to the next.
This one, did you?
Yep, so you don't need to click on that. I just wanted to say that this gentleman, Fred Bartenstein, some of the material that I took today in this little presentation of the vocals, he did a lot of the writing. He did a dissertation on it. He has a lot of very interesting articles online. And if you go to if you just Google him, obviously, you'll find him. And he has presentations and so forth on Bluegrass if you want to research farther along on these rainy days when you have nothing better to do. But so I wanted to give him credit in this presentation because some of the material did come from his work. So, all right.
So this one more.
Guess what time it is?
1, 2, 3.
Your lips deceived me and told me a lie while your
I've been around this country wide seeking fortune fair. Up and down the two coast lines, traveled everywhere. Portland east to Portland west, back along the line. Going out to the place that's best, that old town line. 8 more miles of Louisville, come to mind. 8 more miles of this old road, I'll never more be blue. I knew someday that I'd be back, knew it from the start. 8 more miles of Louisville, old town line. Now there must be a gal somewhere that you like best of all. My lips down in Louisville, she's long and she's tall. She's the kind you won't find traveling through the land. Down this very day when we're hard to find. 8 more miles of Louisville, come to my view. 8 more miles of this old road, I'll never more be blue. I knew someday that I'd be back, knew it from the start. 8 more miles of Louisville, old town line. Now I can picture in my mind a place to call home. A little Hudson will never want to roam. A place that's right without those sights in the Bluegrass hills. Where you can go to the Ohio by a place called Bluegrass. 8 more miles of Louisville, come to my view. 8 more miles in this old road, I'll never more be blue. I knew someday that I'd be back, knew it from the start. 8 more miles of Louisville, old town line. Take us home.
You may notice that when I'm singing, I'm not playing. Dobro is tough to play and sing at the same time because you're generally looking at it when you're trying to play it, and it doesn't work to sing into the dobro. You have to sing out. If you don't look at it when you play, you run the risk of being really out of tune. So I choose to sing and play later.
I have a question, Carol.
Yeah.
You're playing mostly open chords, but it sounds like you're choking them. I don't see how you're doing that.
I have magic powers.
Well,
I know variety, so I do.
Which part of you do I
close-
rub?
I do a lot of closed chords, but then I sometimes will use a 2-finger chord and then I smack it. You can do it where you have a pinky that you can do, or you can hit it right here. There's a lot of ways. So I tend to have sort of roaming ADD, and I do millions of techniques within one song. And I try to not let it sound like I'm intentionally doing something different, but I am sometimes, aren't I? Busted.
Oh, no, I want to know how to do it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I teach mandolin, guitar, and ukulele full time. So if anyone wants a card, also just since I have this moment for shameless self-promotion, I have a music, arts, and culture tour. I lead to Nepal every March. So you don't have to be in fantastic shape or anything, and it's mostly around the Kathmandu Valley. So we learn a lot about music and art and wood carving and monasteries and cool stuff. So if you're interested in that, also I give you a card. So I'm taking people's names for that too.
So just by way of information, the first song we did was Are You Missing Me, which is a Louvin Brothers composition. In Bluegrass, it was popularized by Jim and Jesse, the Virginia boys. And the second one was a Grandpa Jones tune, 8 More Miles to Louisville.
Remember Grandpa Jones?
Yeah, he was a stalwart for many years on Hee Haw, the
On
TV
Hee Haw,
program.
yeah.
Grandpa and Ramona Jones.
Of course, from way before that. And he used to do an old man act even when he was a young man. And then when he looked a lot more authentic later on Hee Haw when he was an old man.
Grew into the role.
And it's a great way to not worry about aging.
That's right. This next one is a tune by the Stanley Brothers, and one of the early founding groups of bluegrass, called "Think of What You Done."
1, 2, 3.
This next one is a tune that Flat and Scruggs made popular.
Supposedly written by Scruggs' wife. I don't think that's true.
Well, you never know. I mean,
It was for,
yeah, Louise was multi-talented. She was the band's manager and really kind of was responsible in large measure for them attaining the popularity that they did, especially in the 60s in the folk revival. So I wouldn't put it past her.
okay.
And another, I'm sorry. I have to keep yapping a little bit. One thing you notice is that a lot of bluegrass songs, like pretty much all of them except the Louisville one, are about good loving going bad. That seems to be a preoccupation with bluegrass songwriters.
No, there's some
Lot of
that's
bit- lot of
fine.
bitterness.
Rolling my sweet baby's arms, there's no problems.
That's true.
Like
There
that.
are some
That's the next
songs-
song is speaking
There
of.
are some songs about good loving going good.
Yeah.
And there are some songs about murder.
Yeah, I didn't put any of those on the list, though.
And then there's just work songs. There's work songs. And stuff.
I thought, let them find that stuff on their own. Alrighty. Sorry,
All right.
Claire.
That's right. 1, 2, 3. It was long, long ago in the moonlight. We were sitting on the banks of the street. When you whispered so sweetly, I love you. They tell me your love's like a flower. In the springtime blossoms are fair. In the fall when it withers away. And they tell me that's the way of your love. I remember the night little so fair. In the fall when weather's waiting, and they tell me that's the way of her love. It was spring when the whispered words there. Flowers were all blooming so fair. But today as the snow falls around, I can see love is not there. But they tell me your love's like flowers in the springtime blossoms so fair. In the fall when weather's waiting, and they tell me that's the way of your love. They tell me your love's like flowers in the springtime blossoms so fair. In the fall when weather's waiting, and they tell me that's the way of your love.
So I wanted to point out that today we're very lucky to have Gary DiGiovanni with us. Gary is a wonderful banjo player. I've been playing with Gary for probably 30 years or more. And yeah, he's very graciously agreed to come and play with us today, and we're thrilled to have him. And the rest of us you've seen. Tara Linhart on the mandolin. Amber Carabello on the fiddle. David Gannon on the big bass fiddle. Keith Evans on guitar. And of course, Gary DiGiovanni. So now we're going to, Keith has been singing this wonderful tenor part for us and talking about duets. And now we're going to let Keith sing a lead, which is a tune that I think comes from Sam and Kirk McGee, right?
Yes.
Blue Night. And it was made popular in Bluegrass by Bill Monroe, whoever he might have been.
There's a lot of songs that start with blue. You know, so if you had like a whole list of songs, bluegrass songs, the blue category would kind of be like the Smith section of the book. You're like, what? And band names with blue in them is a lot too. Yeah. Blue or Mountain or Boys or Lonesome. Those are like
The Lonesome Blue Mountain Boys.
that's there you go. Boom. Get it all in there. And I know I knew an all-girl band. It was this guy's daughters, so they were the all-daughter boys. So you can have a lot of fun with this stuff. Bluegrass people tend to have a good sense of humor, so we don't take it much too seriously.
1, 2, 3. Someone that you blue night.
2, 3.
We're saying goodbye, dear, forever. I'm leaving your false love behind. Every promise you made has been broken. You're no longer a sweetheart of mine. Go back to the bar down the street, dear, and stay with your honky-tonk kind. Go back to the life you've been living. You're no longer a sweetheart of mine. I wanted someone true and faithful, for that is the way it should be. You wanted your honky-tonk life, dear. You're no longer a sweetheart to me. Go back to the bar down the street, dear, and stay with your honky-tonk kind. Go back to the life you've been living. You're no longer a sweetheart of mine. From a bottle to a ride in the moonlight, in the arms of the first man you see. Another victim added to your list, dear. You're no longer a sweetheart to me. Go back to the bar down the street, dear, and stay with your honky-tonk kind. Go back to the life you've been living. You're no longer a sweetheart of mine. From a bottle to a ride in the moonlight, in the arms of the first man you see. Another victim added to your list. You're no longer a sweetheart to me. Go back to the bar down the street, dear, and stay with your honky-tonk kind. Go back to the life you've been living. You're no longer a sweetheart of mine. Go back to the bar down the street, dear, and stay with your honky-tonk kind. Go back to the life you've been living. You're no longer a sweetheart of mine.
How about that thing again? Another day?
He's putting in
That was nice. Good job.
Question,
Question.
call me crazy for asking it. So there's lots of great bluegrass music over the decades. Does anybody ever take music, songs from a very different genre?
Yes.
And convert, this.
Yes.
Call me crazy, show music. I don't know, Jean Valjean tenor in bluegrass or any other.
A lot of show tunes have made it over. Some rock tunes have made it over. Some jazz tunes have made it over.
That would have.
Classical is what you're asking?
Beatles songs,
Beatles songs,
pop
or again,
tunes.
music from the Broadway stage musicals.
Stage music's have a little bit, yeah. There's like Little Rock Getaways and like some of the early vaudeville stuff
Yeah,
is over.
Beatles song Yesterday was turned into a banjo instrumental.
Okay.
There's a whole album by the Charles River Valley Boys, all Beatles stuff.
Oh, you know what's
Quite a
also
long
interesting?
time
If you
ago,
look
too.
up Love Cannon, some friends of mine from Virginia made a band called Love Cannon, and they do all 80s pop songs but bluegrass instruments. There's a lot of variety of things. There's like Newgrass Revival and people like that sort of started into a lot of the rock stuff and Edgar Meyer and a lot of other people are doing a lot of jazz grass. So we have like jazz grass, jam
Not
grass,
suggesting
Cajun
bluegrass
grass,
music
slam
from its
grass.
birth would be great, but might be fun to.
There's also some classical, like you get into some of the Tony Rice and Edgar Meyer and John Carlini and people like that have taken a lot of classical, but there's a lot of classical, like you might like River Suite for two guitars or tone poems, which have a lot of like classical nature to them. I can write down some things afterwards.
The lovely heartstring band that you heard earlier
Yeah.
started out as a Beatles cover band.
First thing that my
Such the
wife
name.
thought of, yes.
And they do things like Lady Madonna and things by, I can't remember the
There's also-
Memphis.
There's a CD out called Saturday Night Hay Fever, which is all like Saturday night, like like the what is that, disco era tunes done by bluegrass, varieties of bluegrass bands. So yeah, there's a lot of fusion stuff out there.
Okay.
Anyway, all right. What's the next
Alrighty.
hit parade number?
We're up to, I know you're married, but I love you still. The title kind of says it all. It's another song by the same composer who wrote the one we just did, Don Reno. This is another Reno and Smiley song about something that just romance didn't quite work out. So this is a 1-5-1
What did it?
and try and keep it at the right tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. The day I met you, my heart spoke to me. It said to love you through eternity. Not knowing that you were another's bride, I vowed I'd always stay close by your side. You know I love you and I always will. I know you're married, but I love you still. You broke a heart, dear, that would die for you. I'd give the world, dear, to belong to you. The game is over and I know I've lost. My broken heart will have to pay the cost. You know I love you and I always will. I know you're married, but I love you still. You know I love you and I always will. I know you're married, but I love you still. Alrighty, well, no bluegrass set list is complete without a song by the Carter family, who were kind of early country superstars, and probably 3/4 to 4/5 of their repertoire is part of the bluegrass repertoire, and this is one of them. It's really inspired by the recording that was made by the Country Gentlemen back in the day. And we're very fortunate to have one of the foremost Charlie Waller interpreters in the country with us today. Today has been a lonesome day. Today has been a lonesome day. Today has been a lonesome day. And tomorrow's gonna be the same way. the thing I really like about that arrangement of that song is just the driving rhythm of it, and that was, you know, the guitar and the bass were just working together on that to give it that sort of propulsive forward motion that just, I think, makes that really exciting.
Driving is another word you could put in the names of your songs or bluegrass band names. Driving something.
It's the rhythm. It's the rhythm
Driving.
section.
All right. So,
I wonder if you looked up driving in like the dictionary, if it would even have the way musicians use driving, like, oh, it's like pushing forward, you know, like, I don't know if that, I would be interested to know. We should look that up. Someone's looking. While I get that.
I'm sure it's in the OED.
Is that, you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Driving
Yes.
rhythm?
Yep.
anyway, the last number we have on the list is
Oh.
yeah, we're already there. A little ahead of schedule, but we don't mind because we have something else.
We have a surprise,
Yeah, we have a surprise that we can put in at the end of the class. But
just in case for emergency.
before we get to that, this last is an instrumental. It's the first one we've done. It's a dobro instrumental. I don't know how that happened, but by Uncle Josh Graves. I mentioned him last week. He was the dobro player with Flatt and Scruggs and the one who sort of brought the banjo sound of dobro playing into bluegrass music.
So dobronical then, it's a dobronical song? Is that our adjectival form?
Dobrological.
Dobrological.
Dobranjo.
The Dobronic man shall go
That's
now.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
And it's called Fireball. And it goes something like this. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to turn it over to Tara here.
Oh, okay.
who,
So
are
we're
you
going to
ready?
do a little interactive something for
Yeah,
everybody
this is,
gets
I
to
thought
say?
that
Okay.
since we are, we've
All right,
finished
so
ourselves.
this is a special treat. So everybody gets to try this. So there's an instrument you can play even without an instrument or a purchase, which is your hands and your legs and whatnot. So all you have to do is be sitting down, which you already are, so you've nailed the first part already. Okay, does this go down after the height problem? I know, but it doesn't. I think it's as short as it goes. Okay, I'll make it work. Okay, so there's things like clogging and ham boning you can do. So clogging, there's a couple kinds of clogging. There's like your basic, there's like clogging, which is like, you can do this just for your basic dance, like a back step. You can do like a shuffle in there. So that's your clogging. So if you didn't have a drum in the mountains, you could do this, right? And then there was like flat footing, which is kind of the same idea but different. So that kind of just has a different, right? So you do that afterwards too. But I figured since we're all sitting, maybe we'll do a sitting one first, which would be a ham boning thing. And you can do sitting patterns too. So if you go see like Cape Breton music, if you see like Cape Breton music or a lot of Canadians, their feet are going the whole time that they're playing. So I can play like do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, and I can still go like this the whole time to back myself up, right? Then I can add hands. So let's do the hands. Don't let me forget my ring. Okay, so if I was doing a song, I could go like 1, 2, 3. So let's just try that. So just back up a little from the decimal yourself. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Does anyone know We Will Rock You? Can anyone do that? Okay. But anyway, this will fit into a 4/4 because it's got a little rest in there. So let's try your other leg. You should have a slightly different tone, which is funny because it's your other leg. But okay. And now try your chest. Well, yeah, if you have your necklace, maybe like that. So I bloodied myself before doing this. All right. We will. Okay, so that's one of your basics ones you do. Now, if you're just doing like a basic, 4/4 song, one of the easiest ones that I use as a go-to to get my groove going is just to go down and then up. So you can be like, right. So that's a great way to just get going, because you 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But if we want to start getting fancy, which everybody does, because then we can look hyper cool, which is really what we're all going for every day, quietly. We don't say it out loud, but it's there. Is we're going to go down. So it's going to be kind of, it's for 8 beats. So it'll work for 4/4 songs, normal songs, but it's going to have 7 moves. So we go down and then up. Got that? So we're all on our right leg. Let's see. Down, up, down. Okay, so I'll just count now. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4 on our other leg. Okay, so let's try that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's try all that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's our move. Ha ha, we got it. Let's try the whole thing again. Ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we got more of the room going. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's go a little faster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's stay there because we have a lot of. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Go a little faster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, while one person's doing that, you guys could keep doing that, and I could do another one, and it'll also fit in. Okay, so if you want another move or two, let's just, how are we doing on time? So another thing you can do is if you, now lean back a little from your desk so you don't hit your head or whatever. You have no liability issues here. So you can do one where you hit the bottom of your leg. This is your hand bones, right? Hit the bottom of your leg, and then hit here, and then go back down, right? Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll add an extra smack. Yeah. Can you guys keep doing that if I stop doing that? Anyway, you get the idea, yeah. And so you can do that at differing speeds, at differing tempos too. So you can smack yourself really anywhere. There's no end to where you can hit yourself, and you start just listening for different tones, you know. So if you start like going, and if you want to do like, let's see, you could do in 3 or 6, you know, you could do little things where you could just make stuff up. I hate to tell you where I learned how to do a lot of this. I promise not to tell anybody. Some of it was while I was driving between gigs. I know it's bad. But really long straight roads for 6 hours. You've got to do something to stay awake. But you can kind of just go back and forth and just try different patterns.
Why is it called ham bone?
This is your ham bone. You're hitting it.
Oh, you're hitting it.
That's your ham bone right there. But you can use any part of your body. So a nice way, if you've got a nice pattern going, you know, you got your, and a nice big ending is just to go for that body. So you just, and yeah, and you can get different tones too, depending on the shape of your mouth. So if you kind of just play with your mouth, try not to hit yourself too hard. I have bruised myself, but not on the face. I've mainly bruised here and here. But and mostly just watch the necklace, because if you start getting really excited and it's music happening, you can easily just be like, I did a bad thing.
You can't file a workers' comp claim when you're hitting yourself.
Yeah, it's hard, yeah. Anyway, but if you want to get some different tonalities of notes, if you take your jaw and you open it and close it a little bit while you lightly smack your cavity of your mouth, when you kind of like this too, and make a little cavern, you'll get different sounds. You know, so you can start just beating all sorts of spots, you know, off anywhere. But yeah, so I do this like when I go to Nepal and stuff, when I like to start music education programs at some of the orphanages over there, and I always like to sort of hang out with the kids so they kind of get to see me and I get to see them. And I can pretty much do a ham bone workshop anywhere, and everybody gets it, and everyone loves it, or clogging. So how much time do we have? Are we done?
You've got about 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Okay, so let's stand up. Do you guys want to try a standing percussion? Okay, so probably let's see. All right, so the easiest thing would be just like step on your right foot, right? And then step on the ball of your left foot and then back on your right foot. So you have step, ball, step. And then you go to your left foot. Step, ball, step. Yeah, keep doing that. Now here's it. Can't do that. I always lose my fingers running. Yeah, all right, so if we got that, let's see. Okay, now if you want to add to that, that's great. You can always just do it. Now, has anyone ever done like tap dance or anything? Okay, so you kind of take just the front bit of your foot here, like not the whole thing, and you can just do shuffle, step, shuffle, step, shuffle, step, shuffle, step. Is that, we got a lot of people seem to be getting that. So let's add from that. So you have shuffle, step. Let's see what would be the next one. All right, I got one. You guys think you can chug? Don't hurt your hips. Anyone's got a bad hip, don't do this one. So if you step, and then just smidge back. Yeah, it's called a chug. Step, chug, step, chug, step, chug. Yeah, and that's going to be your basic. You may want to move the chair back if you're about to hit your chair or something. So if we do that, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if we want to add another sound, we can build and build. Step, chug, and then we take just the heel on the way forward. Because I'm going that way anyway. Just on the way. It's like stopping at a store on the way home. Step, heel, chug. Step, heel, chug. Step, heel, chug. Step, heel, chug. So let's just go back to step, chug. Step, chug, step, chug, step, chug. Yeah, so give yourself a little to go back. So if you're already hitting the wall, you want to move forward a smidge. And if you want to get in front of your desk, This is the time. Like you just move out here, it's fine. So then if you got that, add that extra sound. So step, heel, chug, step, heel, chug, step, heel, chug. Got that? Anyone got that? Yeah, you got it. All right, for a couple people, I see a couple people have it. If you want to finish up, this is your flat footing basic, right? So if you want to finish the flat footing basic with the last sound, dun 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 dun, you got step, heel, chug, and then I'm just on the way back home anyway. I might as well just take the toe of my foot and hit it on the way back, right? So I got step, heel, chug, toe. Step, heel, chug, toe. Step, heel, chug, toe. And the toe's on the way back, so it's not back here. It says, I'm on the way anyway. It's in front of me, right? So let's try it again. Step, oops, heel, chug, yeah, I got it. All right, step, heel, chug, toe. Step, heel, chug, toe. Step, heel, chug, toe. Step, chug, toe. Heel. Yeah, you guys got it. See, a couple people have it. So if you bring that up to speed, right, and then you can kind of vary it because you can go back to your other sounds, right? So you're playing music, right? Because you've got a variety. And then as you start to get better at it, you can do less big movements. Like first you start with the big crayons, right? And then you get into the little crayons, and then you get into the little mechanical pencils, you know. And then you can get like different sounds, like kind of like fiddle players will imitate birds. You know, the feet people will start imitating animals, you know. So there's like horse. You know, you got your gallop sounds. You know, you got your pitter patters. And the same thing when you're doing your Cape Breton style, you know, accompaniment. So I actually learned to clog because, well, my old boyfriend has a sick sense of humor, but I was complaining that, because I lived in the country in Virginia and I didn't have anyone to back me up so I could practice my solos. True story. But, and so I said, well, you know, when you go away on tour, it sucks because I have no one to play rhythm and I can't work on my solos. And he said, well, just clog as you play and then you'll know if you're on time. And I was like, is that a thing? And he was like, yeah, most people can do it. And he went away for 2 months, and he came back, and I was doing it. I was like, check out this solo, you know. And I was just doing all this stuff as I was soloing. But if you're playing too, fiddle players often know this one. Do you do this when you play at all? You want to try it?
I need a chair.
There you go, my friend.
So this one, I'll just show you guys real quick what we're doing. We're going to go toe with the right, step with the left, and then heel forward. So toe, heel, yeah, toe, step, flat, heel. Do it again. Like Levant de Nord was just in New York City the other night, and they are just like going. And I've seen them in interviews talk about, like, they went into the recording studio to record, and the recording guys were like, you gotta stop the feet because he's picking up on the mics. And they were like, we can't stop the feet. And they were like, all right, well, we'll mic the feet. We'll mic the feet. You know, it's like, if you can't beat them, join them. So you just put like a divider or something, and then just like put a separate microphone there. We just can't beat them, join them. But you can do varieties. Like my go-to is just if I'm playing, I just do a steady. But you can do like a, you do a little, that's what I'm playing now.
No, I've heard people do syncopations. I've been fall out of my chair, but.
And also, if you're doing it, if you get into it, there's a certain bounce pack to get so you don't work your hip too hard because your hip will hurt if you do that all night.
Right, when you first start doing this, you think, 10 seconds is the maximum because
It's good toning of the lower abs and
it's
stuff.
toning,
I think.
it's toning something because it feels so bad. But after a while, I think like anything else, you learn to be efficient and you learn to use
Yeah,
your
and there's
muscles
a bounce
correctly.
back. There's a bounce off there, so you don't have to completely use that area. But basically, there's just an unending. Now, spoons is going to just, and triangles, fear will strike in the hearts of anyone if you want kids that tend to be off time and really loud. So, not something I recommend. But the hand boning and the clogging can be really fun, and you always have it. And just for confession, since I already told you I hand boned a few times while driving, while I'm watching a show, I have a really hard time holding still and being a spectator. I have a really hard time holding still. So I will watch a show sometimes and be working on little foot patterns. Can I do this foot? Do this foot? Yeah. So unending amounts of fun. So does that take us to time?
Very good.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah. That was fun.